Yep, I just started. So welcome everybody who is joining us from LinkedIn and from Facebook. We got a wonderful session today on healing the body through routine. I'm going to get it over to Rhonda so she can do a introduction of Jonathan.
Yeah, so I met both of these two Jonathans at the same time in 2022, which seems I can't, it's hard to believe it's been that long, but I've enjoyed that we've stayed in contact and worked together, and now that we are collaborating together with Rise. So I'm going to read Jonathan's bio so y'all can know a little bit more. But this is a very interesting topic, and I believe a helpful topic for everyone. I know the last time that Jonathan did this, I took away a few things that I added to my routine that have been helpful. So I hope each of you do as well. It's going to be an interactive session. So feel free to ask questions and raise your hand. You can use the hand raise button there on Zoom if you have questions, or if you want to, you can just unmute yourself and answer questions. But let me tell you a little bit more about Jonathan, and other than the fact the personal things about him, which really are the best. That he really, I think, when you hear him speak, you're going to see that he's such a calm spirit, and just being in his presence is kind of a gift. So thank y'all all for being here, and I'm glad that we're offering this for from Rise. And I do want to remind everyone that what we do at Rise. So what we do at Rise is we offer vetted practitioners. We offer a community. If you're in the middle of any kind of transition or change, it's a wonderful community to come and be a part of. We also offer support while you're going through any changes or want to just upgrade in some areas. So Jonathan Hall is one of our practitioners who's been vetted and accredited. So feel free, if you ever have any questions on who would be the best person in Rise to connect with, if you're looking at doing providing services, we're happy to help. Dr. Jonathan and I both can help direct you in any journey that you're taking. So without further ado, let me introduce Jonathan formally. So Jonathan is a holistic health educator, wellness coach, and yoga instructor, and he has an extensive academic and clinical training background. He is an international baccalaureate graduate. He earned his Bachelor of Science degree from the University of Florida in Health Education and Behavior, and completed his Master's of Science degree at Maharishi Ayurveda and Integrative Medicine from the Maharishi International University. He has also completed 200 hours of yoga teacher training at the local Ayurveda Health Retreat Center in Ulahuchi.
Alachua.
Alachua. I looked it up and that's so many words already. Florida. He considers himself a student of life, always eager to grow, learn, and teach with an open heart and an open mind. He is passionate about advocating for mental health access and to quality care. A natural approach is to promote wellness that empower people to live their lives to the highest quality. So, with no further ado, Jonathan, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Thank you, Rhonda. Wow, thank you so much for that introduction. I'm honored. I'm grateful to be a part of the Rise team. Yeah, it's incredible to reflect on how we all met each other 4 years ago, and here we are collaborating, working together, developing and raising consciousness. I couldn't be more grateful to be a part of this team. And I'm so grateful to be with all of you today. Yeah, my name is Jonathan. I am a wellness coach, a yoga instructor. I help people with lifestyle coaching in particular. I also can offer dietary recommendations that are rooted in the science of Ayurveda, which we're going to talk about today a little bit. But yeah, like I offer support in helping you actually integrate some of this like ancient wisdom into your life so that it's practical, right? Because we can study things all day long, but how do we actually apply it to our lives? And how can we actually elevate the quality of our life with the resources available to us? And so that's what I help people do. And I'm really passionate about empowering people. I think that's an important part of healthcare work, right? Is empowering you to be the expert in your life, to enliven your own intelligence, your own consciousness, which is kind of, yeah, the foundation of Rise is to develop consciousness, awareness, to raise the quality of our lives and to better understand ourselves on a spiritual level, a holistic perspective, really, that, you know, encompasses our minds, our emotional bodies, astral bodies, spiritual life, all of it, right? And so Ayurveda and yoga are perfect frameworks that help us get a better understanding of who we are and how to actually live our lives in a way that actually nurtures that spiritual self and helps us enliven that spiritual reality within ourselves, so that when we move through the world, we can do so in a way that's more peaceful, more easeful, and we can actually experience more of the greatness and liveliness that is all around us. And so, just to give a little bit of background of how I started this path and why daily routine is actually super important to me, and letting you know like how it can help you, because maybe on the surface level daily routine sounds kind of boring or monotonous. I know for me personally it definitely like was not something I was really into when I was younger. I was like, I don't want to do the same thing every day. And that's actually not what a daily routine it is. You can do different things and still have some kind of routine that anchors you in your life. And so, yeah, we're going to dive into daily routine, and I want to start by just sharing kind of my journey with it, and how I found Ayurveda and yoga, because I grew up with my own health challenges. I actually was born with a kidney disorder, and I ended up needing surgery when I was 14 years old in order to correct a blockage that I had in my urinary system. I used to experience intense internal pain for a number of years, and finally was able to have that resolved. And then later on, I had some car accidents that really impacted my physical, mental, and emotional body. And so essentially, I was physically dealing with a lot, and then later on in life, dealing with a lot emotionally and mentally. And Western medicine is great. Obviously, the surgery I had definitely helped me. It relieved a lot of the physical pain that I was experiencing. But when it came to like mental health and emotional health, there weren't a lot of resources available to me to actually address like post-traumatic stress and trauma and things like that. And so that's when I began my search to try to find more holistic, natural approaches to health that could actually address these areas. And I ended up finding Ayurveda and yoga. And I actually found yoga first. And most people are familiar with yoga. You've probably heard of yoga, right? You're familiar with like the yoga postures, maybe the pranayama, some of the breathing techniques. If you've watched any of the videos this week, I introduced a few of those pranayama techniques. If you'd like to explore those videos are available. And then meditation also was a crucial part of the yoga practice that helped me actually ground myself and deal with kind of the mental and emotional components of health, and actually helped me better understand myself on a more spiritual level. And then that's when I found Ayurveda. So yoga is kind of like the spiritual science. It's the practices you kind of do on the mat. And then Ayurveda is like the other side of the coin, if you will, which is what you do off the mat, right? It's the diet, it's the lifestyle, it's the daily routine, it's your behaviors, your activities that you do that actually nurture you, especially your physical health, but also nurture your emotional and mental well-being, so that when you show up to the mat for your yoga practice, you can actually show up more fully and get the most benefit out of the yoga practice. And so Ayurveda is a healthcare system, and it's also considered a science that helps us understand the rhythms of nature. And it also helps us understand that we are nature. We are a part of nature. We're not separate from nature. The same intelligence that orchestrates the universe and stars and creates galaxies is the same intelligence that lives in each and every one of us. And when we can tap into that intelligence and actually move with that intelligence and with the intelligence of nature, we actually can experience more easefulness, more peace, more bliss in our lives. And that's kind of the yoga philosophy and the Ayurvedic approach to living, which is just tuning into those natural rhythms, like the intelligence of nature that is all around us. And it also recognizes that we're all individual. We all have unique body types, unique personalities. So therefore, we all have unique needs, right? So our daily routine, as well as our diet and other aspects of our lives, are going to be catered to who we are and what our individual needs are. And so Ayurveda is a beautiful system that recognizes that we're nature, how to work with nature to live more harmoniously, and then recognizing how to tune in to recognize our own unique needs and to serve those needs so that we live, yeah, more in alignment spiritually and also like on this physical realm, right? So yeah, when we talk about daily routine, the most important thing to know is that like nature acts in cycles, right? And this is kind of intuitive if you just kind of pay attention, like the daily cycle, the sun rises every day and then the sun sets and then it rises and then it sets. It's a cycle, right? And then we have other cycles like our digestive cycle. Whether we realize it or not, the digestion actually works cyclically, right? There's a period of digestion and then assimilation, absorption, and then hunger, and then it kind of cycles through that. Our sleep cycle, this is being studied more and more, but there's a circadian rhythm, right? There's a natural cycle in the brain that produces melatonin so that we can fall asleep, and then reduces melatonin in the morning when we're meant to be active and all of that. There's the menstrual cycle, which is of course important for our ladies to tune into, right? Which happens to be influenced by the moon. Many women recognize that there's a relationship between the cycle of the moon, nature, right, and their own internal rhythm. And then there's seasonal cycles. So there's the cycles of the season, right? We're in winter right now, and that's going to cycle through to spring, to summer, to fall, and back to winter this time next year. So there's all these cycles in nature. And when we start to tune into all of these different cycles, we start to notice that there are certain activities, certain behaviors, and certain ways of being and moving throughout the world that are most appropriate at certain times of day or certain times of year or the month, so that you can actually move with those rhythms harmoniously instead of maybe working against it. And a nice analogy I like to use is like a river, right? So you have a river that's flowing, and you can consider that the river of life, right? The river is always flowing, always moving, right? You can swim down the middle part of the river where there's no friction and just let life just guide you, right? Maybe you paddle a little bit this way, paddle a little bit that way, but you stay in the center and you just let life move you, inspire you, right? Or you can try to fight your way to the surface or try to fight your way and go against the stream, right? And then life is a struggle, right? It's like you're just like, I'm just trying to swim upriver. Why can't this just be easy? But if you just let go and flow with the rhythm of nature, it will help you move a lot more smoothly. And so that's the idea behind a daily routine, cultivating a daily routine that actually works with these rhythms of nature and working with that rhythm in a way that actually moves you through life more easily instead of fighting against the current. So that's kind of like a framework to understand how we talk about daily routine and actually how it can be healing. Because in many ways, we start to realize when we start acting in ways that are kind of aligned with nature, we feel the difference. And that's what's so wonderful about Ayurveda. It's an experiential science. It's an experiential framework for living. And the feedback is your own experience. It's the feeling good. It's the feeling in alignment. It's I feel my body feels nourished. My mind feels clear. My emotional heart feels full and grateful and overflowing with love and joy and light, right? That is the feedback that lets you know this is an alignment. This is nurturing. And then the other side of that is feeling those heavy emotions or feeling tiredness, fatigue, and lack of clarity. That's also feedback telling you maybe there's certain things that you can change in your lifestyle that can help you move more easily through life. And Ayurveda gives us tools, knowledge, and resources to be able to make those shifts so that we can figure out what are our needs and then what can we shift to actually be more in alignment with ourselves and nature. And it's fun. It can be fun. You experiment with like different practices and different techniques and different rhythms to kind of find that sweet spot of what works for you. So it's not a one size fits all model. It's very much find what works for you model. And the feedback is just your increased well-being, your vitality, your liveliness, your happiness, right? There are some general recommendations that everybody can benefit from. So that's what we'll talk about today. But if you'd like to go deeper, I definitely offer one-on-one coaching where we can dive deep into your unique personality type, your unique body type, what things would specifically support you. but we'll talk more generally today. And again, whatever resonates for you, feel free to try to incorporate it in your life as it feels natural. And anything that doesn't, you can just leave here in our discussion today. So before we begin, any questions rising to the surface yet, or shall I just dive into some daily routine stuff to give you some practical knowledge? All right, perfect. Yeah, so I like this saying, and I'm probably going to botch it now that I'm trying to recall it, but it's basically like you start the day well by planning the day before, right? So it all starts with a nice bedtime. And it may not seem fun, but as an adult, you know, we have a lot of responsibilities. And one of those responsibilities is our sleep. And I personally am really kind of passionate about informing people like sleep is so important, right? So many people are sacrificing their quality of sleep for working late hours, for social engagements. You know, there's a number of things that can keep you up late at night. But really, what's going to be most supportive of your spiritual well-being, your spiritual path, is a good night's sleep. In fact, the three pillars of health in Ayurveda and yoga are sleep, daily routine, we call that Dinacharya, which is kind of your daily activities, and your diet. Those are the three things that if you bring consciousness to, you can elevate the quality of your life significantly. And sleep and diet all kind of fall under the umbrella of daily routine, right? Because diet and sleep, it can all be incorporated in the day in the Dinacharya in your lifestyle. And so it's ideal to go to bed between like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. Now, obviously, that's not practical for everyone. So if you can be in bed by 11 o'clock, that's also sufficient. It's just once you stay up past midnight, you're losing the time of night that is most conducive to the fullest quality of sleep. There's actually science that backs this up too, that shows that, like, for example, we have a glymphatic system in our brain that is only active at night, which is the system that basically pumps out all the metabolic waste from the brain, from all the thinking and doing that your brain is doing throughout the day, which isn't able to actually like drain out until you're asleep. When you're asleep, that system can actually drain out, clear out the system, and then the next day it's like you're reset, right? You're reset. Also, our immune system is rebooted overnight. The lymphatic system works overnight. There's a lot of physiological changes and cleaning and repair mechanisms active at night. And they're most active that 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. time frame. So you really want to be asleep between that 10 a.m., 2 a.m. time frame, because that's going to help you wake up the next morning actually feeling rested, getting a good quality of sleep. And then it's ideal to wake up early, ideally around 6 o'clock. If you can wake up a little before that, or even by 6:30, you know, there's flexibility here. It's not super rigid, but the idea is kind of going to sleep when the sun sets and waking up when the sun rises. That's kind of the natural rhythm that nature has for us. And we know that by melatonin production, right? Melatonin is produced when the sun goes down, and melatonin production decreases when the sun rises. And there's also sleep studies that show that getting early morning sun helps to regulate the circadian rhythm. That's why one really great recommendation upon waking up, and we talked about this last time, and it's really cool to hear how Dr. Jonathan has incorporated this into his own lifestyle, is, you know, taking an early morning walk at sunrise. And it doesn't have to be like right when you wake up, but like any time in the morning hours when the sun is like rising in the sky and these beautiful, you know, dawn rays are shining bright. You know, you can take a nice walk and actually take in all that sunlight that is going to help regulate that circadian rhythm. And it's also just a great way to jumpstart your metabolism, to jumpstart your digestion, circulation, all kinds of other physical benefits of having an early morning walk. And any other movement practices that you have, whether it's exercise, whether it's yoga, or even breath work, it's really ideal to do it first thing in the morning. So carving out time, and I think this was in our week 1 discussion, right? Like how we prioritize actually carving out time. Well, the morning is one of the best ways that you can prioritize yourself in your spiritual path. And the morning time is most conducive for those activities because it's slower, right? Everything's nature's just starting to wake up, right? It's very slow outside. right? So going on a nice morning walk is very peaceful, it's very calming to the nervous system, very soothing to the mind. And it's also energizing you so that on the other side of that, you can more effectively and more with more clarity move into your daily activities, whether it's serving your family, serving your community, going to work, building your business. Whatever it is that you're endeavoring to do, you're going to be more effective if you carve out time in the morning to do your spiritual practices, whether it's prayer, meditation, chanting, even, as well as mindful movement. Those things are going to be really helpful in starting your day off well. And then, of course, you want to take care of the body. So you want to make sure this may be, TMI, but pooping regularly is really important, right? If you're noticing constipation, that is a symptom that something's not going well, not moving properly with the digestive system. And it's an indication to pay attention to that, to figure out what can I do to get my system moving? Because ideally, we should be having that bowel movement first thing in the morning or sometime in the morning hours. Shower afterwards, brush your teeth, scrape your tongue. Maybe you've heard of this, maybe not, but it's really ideal to get a tongue scraper and actually scrape the plaque off your tongue first thing in the morning. That helps, obviously get rid of excess bacteria, plaque. It also helps the taste buds. It helps jumpstart that digestive system, which actually starts in the mouth. Your digestion starts in the mouth. That's why oral care is so important. And also, oil pulling is a really fun Ayurvedic Dinacharya practice, which is taking oil. A lot of people use sesame oil, but I use like a coconut oil based product that you can just get at the store. I get mine at Publix. It's called Gandusha. I always get it wrong. Gandusha, which is oil pulling. And basically you sip a little bit of oil, you don't swallow it, you just gargle it around in your mouth for 30 seconds to 2 minutes, just however much time you want. And it helps lubricate all of the oral passageways, helps lubricate the mouth, prevents dryness, nourishes all the tissues that are actually really sensitive and really important in the mouth. And then you just spit it out. I spit it out outside. You can have a special thing that you spit it into. That's your choice how you want to do that. And then the last technique to do in the morning as you're taking care of your body is called nasya, which is applying oil into the nose. So I have like a dropper, and then I'll just take a few drops and I'll just kind of, and just put some oil, and that helps lubricate the sinuses. So I know a lot of people deal with issues with sinuses. I don't know how many times I hear, oh, I have allergies, which maybe you do. I'm not invalidating that. But there are things you can do to support your nasal passages. And one thing is nasya every morning, which is just a few drops of oil in the nose. And there are specific oils that you can find that are meant for this purpose, called nasya, Nasya. And what that oil does is not only nourish the tissues in the mouth and in the nasal passages, but it's also balancing what we call the doshas in Ayurveda. And I'm not going to dive super deep into the doshas, but it kind of gets into the science of Ayurveda and why we do different recommendations. These doshas are basically they govern those cycles of natures that we're talking about. So there's like this nature's intelligence that's being orchestrated to make sure everything's running in the universe and in our bodies. And that oil helps to actually balance certain doshas that can be overactive, let's say in the nervous system or in the sinuses, and things like that. So yeah, the oil is actually really important. Also, if you like, and if you have time, Abhyanga is a really good practice in the morning and in the evening. So you can fit it in the morning, but you can also do it in the evening because it's very soothing on the nervous system, right? And how many of us deal with stress? How many of us experience overwhelm and overstimulation and just like overwhelm on the nervous system, right? Abhyanga, or self-oil massage, is a wonderful practice that helps ground you and calm and soothe the nervous system. And if you're not able to do a full body Abhyanga, you could even just do as simple as your ears. Just putting oil on your ears and rubbing your ears can be such a grounding and soothing experience, right? Or maybe just do your whole head, right? You only have time to just nourish your head. So you're oilating the inside of your mouth, the inside of the nasal passages, and then your entire head, ears, which is going to soothe the nervous system tremendously, right? And if you do that every day, you'll start to notice the impact that that has and how grounded and soothed you can walk throughout the rest of your day with. And then if you need a little pick me up in the evening, maybe do a little self abhyanga, or any other grounding practices like meditation, yoga, etc. So those are some really good morning practices to do. And then breakfast is usually something you want to have by like 8:30, 9 o'clock. And the thing with breakfast is you want a light meal. You don't want to eat anything that's super heavy because like you are waking up first thing in the morning, your digestion is also waking up, so to speak. So it's not fully functional until about noon or 1 o'clock when the sun is highest in the sky. And there again is another relationship between nature and our bodies, right? Our digestion, which in Ayurveda they call digestive fire. So it's actually the fire in your belly that cooks your food, breaks it down into nutrients, energy, and everything. There's a relationship between that digestive fire and the sun that's highest in the sky. So noon to 1 is actually when you should have your largest meal at lunchtime. And it's actually kind of counter to a lot of our lifestyles. Where I think dinner is usually prioritized as like the main meal. And it's understandable why that is. Most people are getting off work between 5 and 6. It's when the family can come together, and really enjoy some family time, meal time together. And of course, you can still absolutely do that. But lunch should be when you actually eat the like most quantity of food and the densest food that you're going to eat that day. So breakfast, it's ideal to have, some like light oatmeal, porridge, toast, just like anything that's going to be lighter and easier to digest on your system. And then give yourself 3 to 4 hours before having your next meal at lunchtime, which would be your main meal. And then dinner is usually by 5 or 6. And that's by sunset because you want to eat your last meal 3 to 4 hours before you go to bed. So since we're prioritizing, a 9:30, 10 o'clock bedtime, you really want to have your final meal by like 6 o'clock, 7 at the latest, so that that food is fully digested before you go to bed. Because if you go to bed with food in your tummy, instead of your body doing all of those biological processes like rebooting your nervous system, your immune system and lymphatic system, and resetting your brain metabolism, it's having to digest the food instead, which is going to leave that stuff unfiltered in the brain. It's not going to be able to fully boost your immune system and all the other things. So that's kind of like the diet, sleep, incorporated in the lifestyle. And then one thing that's really important about meals is to sit consciously and chew your food slowly, right? And how many of us, I'm guilty, eat that meal real quick. We're on the go, maybe even have a granola in the car on our way to work, or something like that. And in Ayurveda, we recognize that like it's not just what you're eating, but it's the way you're eating, right? That impacts the quality of your digestion and the quality of nourishment you're going to get from the food that you're eating. And so really taking 20 minutes for each meal to just sit, chew consciously, slowly, and also mindfully being aware of what's in your environment, right? So maybe not, turning on the news while you're eating and watching things that, are not inspiring you, to live a higher quality of life, right? So maybe enjoying that time with your friends, your family, whoever you're with, or if you're eating alone, not distracting yourself by being on your phone, reading or watching, YouTube or television. I'm talking to myself right now. So that you can really like bring your full awareness into the quality of food that you're eating to enliven that experience of nourishment that you get from your food, right? So when we talk about consciousness, Ayurveda has a wonderful approach to really bringing more consciousness into your life by not only what you're doing, what you're eating, but how you're eating and how you're doing the things that you're doing, especially exercise and these other morning practices I mentioned. Are you scraping your tongue really quick just to get it over with? Or are you just intentionally like, all right, taking your time, making sure you're not injuring your tongue or anything like that? It really makes a difference on how you're doing the activities and not just what you're doing. And Yeah, any questions? I want to pause there because I know I've kind of given a lot. So if there are any questions about any of those general recommendations or anything else related to that topic, please feel free to raise your hand. Otherwise, I can certainly keep going.
I guess my question is there any truth or does Ayurvedic say anything about um when you're drinking water before meals, like it
Mm,
being like room temperature water to help with digestion or anything like? Because I had heard that like certain
yes.
cultures I know like won't actually have cold water. Like they'll either do warm water or or room temperature water. So is there anything? I'm curious. Is there anything to that? Is and does what is Ayurvedic? Or if it does, what does it say about that?
Yes, and actually, I'm so glad you mentioned that because that's something I usually mention a lot, and I totally haven't mentioned that at all. But yes, in Ayurveda, it's actually recommended that you don't drink ice water, like at all, but especially not with your meal, because if you think of your digestion like literally a fire, the analogy they use in Ayurveda is that you have this fire in your belly, and if you pour ice water on the fire, what are you doing to that fire? You're extinguishing it. So you're literally lowering the capacity for your digestion to adequately digest your food. It's also kind of a shock to the system because the system's like what 90 something degrees internally, right? And ice cold water is kind of a shock to the system in a way. So it is recommended that room temperature water or even slightly warm water be what you drink. And in fact, there's detoxification protocol in Ayurveda called Panchakarma. Maybe some people have heard of it. It's a whole system of different techniques and practices that detox the body. And one of the most important parts of detoxing the body is what they call kindling the digestive fire, which means strengthening your digestion. And one of the ways that you cleanse your GI tract and strengthen your digestion is by sipping warm water throughout the day. Like, so if you're feeling heavy, you feel like your metabolism is slow, you just feel like you need a detox, like things are not moving properly, you've got mental fog, like all these signs that are indications that digestion probably isn't working optimally, then eat a light diet and sip hot water throughout the day. And literally boil water, put it in a thermos that keeps it warm throughout the day, almost like tea, but just no herbal teas. And you can certainly have herbal tea. CCFT is actually a really great one for digestion. It's cumin, coriander, fennel tea. That combination of herbs is really great for cleansing the digestive tract and supporting digestion. But just water on its own, sipping that every 15 to 20 minutes can really clear out the digestive tract. But as a day-to-day support for your digestion, drinking room temperature water is recommended because ice water is gonna it's not going to support optimal digestion. Now, keep in mind, everybody's body is different. People do have different metabolisms. So, for example, I am a very fiery person. So, a little bit of cool water can actually be really beneficial for me. But again, it's not ice cold water. It's maybe refrigerated water, right? Like that refrigerated water can be fine. You know, you can kind of swish it in your mouth, kind of warm it up a little bit before you swallow. That's kind of what I do. But for a lot of body types, you don't want to be having ice cold water. And, you know, I know that that's very contrary to how like we kind of live our lives in America. Iced beverages are very common in restaurants. They just serve it to you very presumptively, like this is what people do. And that's great if you enjoy that. But just pay attention to your digestion. If you feel like your digestion is not working properly, you know, one small thing you could do is just not have ice in your beverages. So thank you, Dr. Jonathan, for mentioning that because that's actually a really important Ayurvedic tip. Yeah, to support your digestion. Yeah. Any other questions? Awesome. So one thing to know about daily routine is that there are other cycles other than just the daily cycle. So we kind of talked about what a daily cycle can look like. In the evening, I didn't mention, but in the evening, it's just important to slow down, right? Like as you prepare for bed, really prioritize things that are going to help you relax. So some really helpful practices are like aromatherapy, sound therapy, whether it's soothing music. In Ayurveda, they have a whole field of music called Gandharva Veda, which is a type of music that's very soothing and calming. But any kind of sound healing experience can be really supportive in the evening as you wind down. Essential oils are really great. Abhyanga, meditation, very gentle movement practices like yin yoga can be really helpful, so that by the time you're ready for bed, your body is actually ready for bed. Because a lot of people go to bed and their minds are racing, right? So the mind also, in addition to the body, needs a little bit of time to unwind. So that's why it's a good idea to probably stop watching TV or having your eyes on a screen around 8:30, if possible, 9 o'clock at the latest. That way, there's a little bit of time where your brain isn't processing that blue light, that comes from the screen. And there are settings on like your computer and on your phones. Maybe not every phone has it, but I know on like my laptop, for example, there's like a red light setting that kind of tints the screen more of a reddish color instead of a blue color. And that's a little bit calmer on the eyes. So those are just some evening considerations to consider as you prepare for a good quality night's sleep.
I had a question, Jonathan. It made me think as you're thinking about that going to sleep if your mind's kind of racing. What
Mhm.
is there recommendations what to do if you do wake up at that like 3 o'clock in the morning and your mind's racing? What would be the
Yeah.
approach or recommendation for people that that happens to?
Yeah. So one thing I'll say, if it's a recurring thing, your nervous system is overwhelmed. So during the day, ground yourself, right? That's where meditation, breath work, essential oils, the oil massage, various different practices that can really ground you and soothe your nervous system are going to be really important, because basically it's stress living in your body, and it's manifesting by waking you up at night, right? And if you over time give your nervous system the ability to soothe and to reset, you'll be able to sleep longer throughout the night. Now, if it's like you're just waking up at 3 a.m., maybe once in a while or maybe a few times a week, um, uh, grounding yourself again is like it's stress, your mind's overactive. So breath work, I would say, is actually like one of the best ways to actually allow yourself to sink into a relaxed state. A simple technique like the yogic breath, which is just a deep inhale into the bottom of your belly, breathing into your mid belly, bringing the breath all the way up to your upper chest, holding for a moment, and then exhaling from your chest all the way down to the pit of your belly. Just 3 to 5 of those yogic breaths, just full nourishing inhales, and softening your body as you exhale and elongating that exhale can really help shift your nervous system and allow you to return to a peaceful, nice sleep. Now, if that doesn't work, then there are other breathing techniques that you may need to do a little bit longer that can help soothe you. And then essential oils. I think lavender is a really good one. So putting lavender on your feet before bed can actually be really nice. Even just massaging your feet without oil, but if you can massage your feet with oil, and especially lavender oil, will help soothe your system so that you can stay asleep as well. And if you do wake up in the middle of the night, you could do that practice, rub some lavender oil on your feet. I find it helpful to actually put lavender oil on my temples, maybe my third eye, put it on the wrist, right at the radial artery right here. It's a good place to kind of soak up essential oils and kind of rub your wrist together like that. So those are some things that you can definitely do that can help. Yeah, so sleep is so important. Can I just get a raise of hands? Who has trouble sleeping? Whether it's falling asleep or whether it's waking up late at night. Yeah, yeah, I want to see. Raise your hands. It's so important. It's so important. Yeah. Yeah, so let that just be an indication to that your body's telling you there's something you can do to support yourself there. And if you really bring attention to that area of your life, it can really make such a difference. And it can start with just maybe going to bed a little bit earlier each night and waking up a little bit earlier. Or it could be incorporating some of these practices we've talked about. So really, the thing about Ayurveda that's kind of amazing and profound is how simple it is. And I know for me, that was the thing that was kind of like, wow, I'm like, my mind is making all of this way more complicated than it actually is. And then once I started to like just kind of surrender to the simplicity of it, it's like, oh wow, this is really helpful, right? So it doesn't have to be like super complicated, and it doesn't have to feel like a chore, right? Like you'll be inspired to make these changes, whatever changes you'd like to make, because you want to feel better. You really do. You know, your body wants to feel good. Your mind wants to be at ease. And so you'll naturally find the things and gravitate towards the practices that will support you and nurture you. And I think that's something that's really important when you're exploring new approaches, whether it's Ayurveda yoga or any other system of medicine, healthcare, energy work. It's important to not feel overwhelmed by like the the vast options that are available to you. I think what's really important is like learning how to tune in. What does my body need right now? What is like one or two things that I can do right now that will actually support me, right? What's an area of my life that's needing attention? Is it my body? Is it my emotions? Are my emotions all over the place? Am I, having mood swings? Am I grieving? Am I experiencing anger, frustration? Is it stress, right? Just identify like one or two things that are like kind of core issues, if you will, and then identify things that you can do about it. And really, that can be such a helpful feedback loop to help you improve the quality of your life and incorporate practices that help you. Because at the end of the day, it's about you. It's about supporting yourself and showing up in your life the way you want to show up instead of feeling like a plastic bag being thrown through the wind, right? So that's what I love about Ayurveda is it empowers us with so many different resources, tools, techniques, practices that can support us. And so find what works for you and experiment. Don't be afraid to experiment. And then if something doesn't work for you, there's something else, right? So yeah, that's definitely a key takeaway I want you to take away from this conversation. Any other questions?
I guess you had mentioned that that oil that begins with an N. I'm not gonna say it because I don't know how to pronounce it. I gotta.
Nasya?
But yeah, yeah. So is you're mentioning that in relation to allergies? Is that oil supposed to help with allergies, reduce allergies? Would it be helpful for allergies?
So one thing about Ayurveda is it doesn't focus on the symptoms as much. Symptoms are a sign of imbalance, right? And so what we're doing with Ayurveda and Ayurvedic lifestyle and practices is supporting our well-being, supporting our nervous system so that the symptoms are alleviated as a byproduct, right? And that's kind of a different frame than like Western medicine. So medicine kind of identifies like a disorder, a problem, dysfunction, and then we try to address those symptoms. And that can be helpful if you have allergies and they're really bothering you. Taking an antihistamine or something can alleviate the symptom and improve your quality of life in that moment. But what Ayurveda does is says, well, let's focus on the root cause. And the root cause of you being susceptible to allergies is an issue with the immune system. And so supporting your immune system is the priority in Ayurveda. And one way you can do that is through nasya and other oil pulling and practices that nourish the tissues, right? Because our bodies, our cells are actually lipid bilayers. And so oil penetrates deeply at the cellular level to actually nourish and hydrate and support the tissues. And when the tissues are healthier, they're more resilient. So by applying the nasya oil into the nose, you're supporting the tissues there at a cellular level that can help contribute to a stronger immune system. Yeah. Yeah. And so speaking of immunity and routine, we want to consider the seasons, right? The seasons we're in, right? So in winter and in spring, right? I know a lot of people deal with, allergies, sinus issues, respiratory infections, or upper respiratory conditions, just overall flu, sickness, things like that. And these are kind of a part of life, right? Like life, there's viruses, there's bacteria. Actually, right now, your body is covered with thousands of bacteria, fungus, and viruses. And not all of them are bad, actually. In fact, in your gut, there's like 99% of the bacteria that are living on you and in you are in your gut. And most of those bacteria and funguses and other microorganisms are actually supporting your well-being. And so the foods you eat and the way you act and behave in different seasons actually contributes to the health of that bacteria of your gut and of your overall immunity. And so, for example, we're in winter right now, and as you may notice, winter is very dry. It's brittle. It's rough. The air is windy. It's cold. There's lightness in the air. You may feel lightness in the body, coldness in the body. So it's really important to support yourself, not only by grounding yourself, as we kind of talked about different ways you can ground yourself through different exercises, practices, techniques, but also the food that you're eating, right? And so considering like for winter, you want to eat warm, nourishing food that's a little bit heavier, right? Heavy food is going to balance like the lightness, the brittleness, the coldness, the roughness of winter. And so warm soups are really great. Root vegetables are really good during the winter. You want to avoid dry food, hard and raw food. You want to make sure your food is cooked well at winter time. And so salads, light food like that, popcorn especially, you want to kind of avoid that during the winter season. And maybe it doesn't make sense. I definitely could go into like the rationale behind that, but I won't. But it is just ideal for winter to try to avoid things that are dry, light, hard, and in favor things that are more unctuous, oily, heavy, and warm. Right. So using healthy oils in your food is really ideal at this time of year. So olive oil, avocado oil, white cheddar, popcorn in all seasons. I hear you. Yeah. So maybe have some oil on that popcorn, right? Some healthy ghee, right? Melt some ghee and flavor it with some oil so that you have something that's kind of heavy to go with that popcorn. You know, the thing I like about Ayurveda is it's not like you have it's not all or nothing, right? It's just balance. It's moderation and it's timing, right? So maybe there are certain times where it's ideal to eat less popcorn. You just had popcorn before this interview. Good for you. I hope you enjoyed it. um, yeah, you know, it's just a consideration, right? Because you'll notice how obviously like our food affects our minds and it affects, you know, our body, right? And so our mental state can also be influenced by the way we're eating and what we're eating. And then in spring, it's kind of the reverse. You want to eat foods that are lighter and also warm, but you know, raw vegetables can be a little bit better at that time because you're balancing kind of the heaviness of spring, right? A lot of people deal with like sinus stuff, excess mucus, especially kids. Wow, popcorn is really popular with you guys. I love it. Um, and so yeah, springtime comes around, then you can start eating lighter foods, less root vegetables. You know, you can still eat some nice soups, but maybe they're lighter, less oil, things like that. Summer comes around, it's the hottest time of the year, so you want to focus on things that are cooling on your system, hydrating, right? So less spicy food is going to be very supportive. Now I know some people really love their spicy food, right? But it can really aggravate your system, especially if you're a type person that's fiery, like such as myself. You imagine fire, increasing more fire at the hottest time of the year, right? Inflammation will ensue, right? Some temper, you know, anger, frustration, these kind of emotions can be more, there's a more of a tendency for that. So at summertime, you really want to make sure you're prioritizing emotional intelligence, really tuning in to how your emotions are impacted, because it's not just frustration or anger that can be aggravated by the summer heat. It can be other things on an emotional level that can be more sensitive. You can be more sensitive emotionally at that time of year. So really prioritizing low stress and easefulness in your daily routine, maybe backtracking on how much you're contributing to work or things like that, business endeavors. That's why it's always interesting to notice how like there's always a summer vacation in the school curriculum, right? It's a very appropriate time to not have kids at school, right? It's the hottest time of the year. So it's actually really good for kids to not be in school during the summer so they can kind of take it easier at that time of year as they're nourishing themselves and just enjoying themselves. And then autumn comes around, fall, and that's kind of the time of year where we're preparing for winter, right? So you're shifting your diet, your activities. Maybe you're doing more. Maybe you're starting to become a little bit more inward in your focus, right? Nourishing yourself because a lot of animals hibernate for winter, right? And so it's a natural time of year for you to kind of go within. It's a great time for self-reflection, cultivating those habits and maybe spiritual practices that work for you that will really ground you in the winter as you move through that season of life. And then speaking of season of life, one other cycle of nature that's really important to consider is our life cycle, right? Like all of us are at a different phase, different cycle of life. And Ayurveda recognizes that what you needed as a child won't be what you need as an adolescent. And what you need as a teenager, you're not going to need as a full-grown young adult. And what you do and how you behave as an adult won't be how you maybe behave when you're an elderly person, right? So there are different ways to support yourself throughout the seasons of your life. And just as a very general recommendation, really good for kids to get lots of activity, right? So if you're a parent, let your kids be active, let them play outside. It's so important for kids to be in nature, to contact nature, to be exposed to a lot of different, natural organisms that support their immunity, right? That's how they actually build a strong immunity that's going to last them a lifetime. And then as adults, it's really important to support your creativity. Also, as support your children's creativity too, set them up for success, let them explore, their talents and things. But once you're an adult, it's really important to actually go out into the world and express yourself, express your creativity, use your voice, find your passions and really nurture that, cultivate that. A lot of people experience stagnation and get to the end of their life, maybe feeling regret because they didn't do the things that they wanted to do. So it's a really important time of life, especially from like 30 to 60, to really allow yourself to pursue those endeavors that bring you joy and bring you passion. Don't wait to go on that travel trip, or to start that business or to pursue that course. Really allow yourself those opportunities. And then as an older person, you are naturally encouraged to slow down. And many people will enjoy retirement, but it's also really important to ground yourself with that daily routine, especially important in the later years of your life, to have a grounded, anchored daily routine that keeps your mind at ease, that keeps your nervous system regulated. And a lot of the practices we talked about, like the oil massage and things like that, can be very helpful for dry skin, the tendency for constipation, for cognitive decline, because how many people are we aware of that are experiencing cognitive decline in their elderly years, right? And so, of course, prevention is going to be the best thing for that by having a lifestyle, a daily routine throughout your life that supports you once you reach your elderly years, but once you're there, also really grounding yourself into that routine. That's why it's really natural to experience old people as like set in their ways. There's actually a healthy way to be set in your ways, right? Grounded in a healthy routine that supports you. So those are some really important considerations to know. It's like as you age, your daily routine will change with you, and that's natural. So change is a very natural part of life. And when we move with the rhythms of change and adapt, we actually can experience more health and more well-being. So yeah, I hope you guys really appreciated kind of the overall theme of the cycles of life. I hope you can pay more attention to those cycles in your own life and find the tools, techniques, practices that work for you to nurture your well-being. It's been such an honor to be able to talk about this with you all. And of course, if you have any final questions, please feel free to ask. Absolutely. Thank you, Cindy. I appreciate your message. I'm just looking at the chat now.
Actually, I have one random question. So
Yes.
in your guidelines for proper digestion, I see that you say don't eat heated honey. and I've been putting like Manuka honey in my tea and coffee and things like that. Should I not be should I not be doing that?
That's a great question. So in Ayurveda, according to Ayurveda, honey becomes toxic when it is boiled. So when it's heated. So you don't want to cook with it, but you can add it to things after the fact. So don't put honey in your baking goods and then bake it, but add honey at the end as a topping, right? To accentuate the flavor. You can add honey to your tea or to your coffee, but you want to let the tea cool down. My teachers explained it like this. If you put your finger in your coffee or your tea and you burn your finger, you don't want to put the honey in, right? But if you can put your finger in your tea and it's warm, right? It's warm, but it's not burning your finger. It's okay to put your tea, your
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great consideration. Yeah, honey is considered medicine in a lot of ways. In fact, a lot of Ayurvedic herbs and supplements you can actually take with honey. It helps to digest it and assimilate it more, but it's just important not to heat it, to overcook it.
Oh, heated. Okay. Thank you.
Is it true that when honey touches metal, it loses some of its helpful benefits? I'm not aware of that. I'm not aware of that. I'm not aware that that's an issue. Thank you for your question, Cindy.
Do we have any other questions?
Speaking of metal, an Ayurvedic tip is copper and stainless steel. Those are really good. So like, for example, for like a tongue scraper, you'll find some as stainless steel, but you'll also find some copper ones. Ayurveda really reveres copper as a nice metal that's friendly to the body. So if you have like copper glasses that you want to drink out of, copper plates, silverware, other utensils, tools, that can be really nice to use.
I do want to remind everyone that we are starting tomorrow, starts our community fast. And if you want to participate in that, I just put a link in where you can sign up if you aren't already signed up. Jonathan, did you want to add just real quick? Is there anything Ayurveda has to say about fasting or the benefits of, or?
Yeah, it's really interesting. This is a really fascinating conversation. Fasting can be really great. And obviously, Dr. Jonathan has a great anecdotal experience with it. I've had really good experience with fasting. Ayurveda, I remember one of my teachers telling me it was the original intermittent fasting program, right? Because if you think about it, if you eat your breakfast at 8:30, have lunch by noon, and have dinner by 5 or 6, you're not eating between 6 and 9 the next day, right? That's a good window of intermittent fasting, right? And if you eat like that every day, it's a natural intermittent fasting program. So Ayurveda is a great way to just naturally incorporate intermittent fasting in your life. One thing Ayurveda does say is that too much fasting can be not helpful to the system. So that's the only consideration. If you're underweight, if your digestion is poor, if you're ungrounded, experiencing anxiety, lightheadedness, fatigue, all of those things, really pay attention to that, because that can be an indication that the fasting is not supporting you. There are healthy levels of overcoming light fatigue and things like that. But if you're experiencing exhaustion, lightheadedness, lack of mental clarity or groundedness, maybe more intermittent fasting as opposed to full-blown fasting could be more supportive for your system. So that's the main consideration. But overall, intermittent fasting, I think, is really great.
Yes, and remind everyone, for the fasting, it is pick your method of fasting, and it could be as simple as, if food is not the thing that something of that nature that you want to fast from, you could think of something more in terms of like a digital fast, which people can do if you wanted to try that. So you can be very creative. But in terms of just basic fasting, in this, when you sign up, Dr. Jonathan has put quite a bit of resources there to support you, and we'll have 4 daily check-in opportunities, because it's always, when you're doing something like this, it's always nice to have support, and especially if it's your first time. But even if it's not your first time, it's nice to see if everyone else is kind of hitting some of the same roadblocks you might be hitting. So we encourage you all to join if it's something you're interested in doing, and we'll be having more of those through the year too. But if there are no other questions, then I think we are we are done. I want to remind everyone that Jonathan is one of our practitioners. He does individual consultations for nutrition and yoga and breath work. So if you're interested in that, you can find him on ConsiRise.com, and you can book an individual session with him. So we appreciate you, Jonathan, so much, what you provided today. And it was so helpful. Yes,
You
thank
all.
you.
Yeah, thank
I'm
you all
looking
for
at the
being
oil.
here.
The oil might be the new thing I'm adding for
Yeah,
the kisses.
it's
So
really great. Yeah, it's really great. I love it.
thank
Thank you
you.
all for being here. It was such a joy to be able to guide this discussion. And yeah, I'm wishing you all health and wellness and much love.